Hey subscribers and watchers, welcome back again. This is me, Said Al Yahya Sar from Computer Science for Self-Taught. And this is the continuation of our previous video on multitasking on Android, okay? And if you jump and download to this video, make sure that you watch our previous video, because on the previous video I've given you guys the whole concept and the whole theory about multitasking and its types, and also about trace handlers and all those things. So in this video we are gonna work out nice examples using threads. My idea is that when I click on the first button, so it's going to update its text view to some relative numbers, and at the same time when I click on the second button, it also updates its text view with some numbers. So as I've told you that you cannot do this because you cannot block the main thread for doing some tasks. If you block the UI that it takes more than 16 seconds, an ANR dialog will be appear and it will say that this app is not responding. So there will be given for you guys two options. Either you click wait so that the main thread comes back to its cycle, or close that app. First, let's do that without using thread and see what happens if we do not use threads for doing some task which takes more than 16 seconds. So I'm going to main activity. I've already initialized these buttons and text views to their respective buttons and text views on activity-main.xml. So now I'm gonna just handle their events, and for that I'm gonna create a handler in here, okay? And don't forget that in each video I'm gonna show you a different structure of coding so that you can write or you can choose whatever coding style you like, okay? So I say view.onClickListener, so I listener equals to new view.onClickListener, okay? And I put the semicolon in here, and in here I have to register them to those text views. So I say btn1, sorry about this, btn1.set onClickListener, and I pass this listener object inside these buttons. And then by using the view variable which we have in here, we will check that which button is clicked. And again I have to register our button 2 that's set on click listener and pass the listener object in there. So now in here I'm gonna check that which button is clicked. So I use the switch. You can also use if else, while loop, or do while loop, or anything you like. I used switch and I get the ID of the clicked button in here, and I use the case button and I say r.id. If the btn1 or btn first was clicked, so do some task for me in here. And if the case was r.id.btn second, so do some task in here for me. So I say my idea is that when I click on the start trade 1, so it's going to updates the text view which is trade 1 to some relative numbers, and when I click on the trade 2, so it's also updates the trade 2, which is nothing but our text view, to update it to some respective numbers. Let's see if we can do two tasks at the same time on a main thread, and let's see what happens if we do this. So I say I use the for loop to amuse the main thread for 3000 numbers, okay? And I say and I equals to 0 if I was equals to these much numbers, okay? So I increment the I, and at the same time also updates the text view which is text1.setText. So the value it requires a string, so we have to cast this to a string. How we can do this? I use the string.value of, and I pass the integer value in here. So it gives me an error because integer number too large. Android considers this an integer, but it's not, so we have to put an L in here, so there will be no problem. Condition I, if I was less than to this number, is always true. Long letter ends with lowercase. So at the same time you can also change the color of the value. Set text color, and I use the color class which has its static attribute, and I use the green color. And at the same time I copy these lines of code and I put them inside the button 2. Only I change their respective text view 1 and text view 2. So this is it. Let's see if we block the main thread for this time. Okay, when I click on the run and I click OK, when I first button, so it's going to update this text view to 0 up to this number. At the same time, while it's doing its updation, I'm gonna click on the second button, so it's also update its text view which is nothing trade 2 up to some respective number. Let's see what happens. When I click on the start trade 1 button and trade 2, nothing happens. Thread exercise isn't responding because we're blocking the main thread for more than 16 seconds. And this is the dialog which I've already told you in the theory part in our previous video. So either you click wait so that the main thread can back to its life, or close the app. So this is why we must not block the main thread, because Android is a single threaded app, and for an extra task you need to create a separate thread for them. So now let's see if we use threads what happens. So I close the app. So let's create a separate thread for each task and let's see what happens. For creating a thread, what you need to do is you need to say, okay, I'm gonna remove this, new thread, and pass the object of runnable in here, which is an interface, new anonymous class, and then call the start method to start your thread. Do not call .run, otherwise it will not be a threaded app. Always call start, and in here you will do all of your related works which take much time, so you must give it to the background thread. So I say for int I equals to 0 if I was less than 1000 or 300, increment the I. Again, you cannot update the UI or user interface from the background thread. Okay, let's see what if we update the UI from the background thread. Text1 dot set text color, color dot green, text1 dot set text string dot value of, and pass the value of I. And again I copy the same thing in here. I will create a separate thread for my second button. You can also do that way. You can also create a reference of it. Thread equals to new thread and pass the object of runnable, and then call the thread dot start. And in here you must do this task also. Just only change the text views. So let's run what happens if we update the user interface from a background thread. Okay, it is a background thread that you have created. This is also a background thread. Okay, they run in the background. Okay, when I click on the thread one, and there you will get an error, and it will say, let's minimize this one, only the original thread that created a view hierarchy can touch its view. That's why I've already told you you cannot update the UI from the background thread. This is the error you may get. So there are certain methods that you can request the main thread to update the UI from the background thread, and those are nothing but the run handlers and run on UI thread. To update the UI from the background thread, you need to run this on the UI thread. So I call the main activity, which is the current activity, name of the current activity dot this dot run on UI thread. Either you can call the run on UI thread in this way, or write the run on UI method also and pass the runnable object in here, and again put the updation of UI in here. Okay, when I is equals to 0 and the condition is true, it comes inside this method run on UI thread. It means it transfers the control to the main thread. Let's go in here and again call the use the main activity dot this dot run on UI thread and pass the runnable object in here and put the updation of UI from the background thread to the main thread. So let's run and see what happens if we do this. So we must also put our threads to sleep, because the operation is too fast. We won't have enough time to see the increment. I put it to 100 milliseconds, and I have to surround it with try catch also. And I also, the second button, put this inside the for loop. I say thread dot sleep to 100 milliseconds and surrounds it with try and catch. So in here it gives an error that it says that the variable I should be final, because you're accessing it inside the inner class. We cannot declare the I final, because we declare I as final, it is a constant, so it also gives us error. So I declare the variable of I outside the run method. Okay, and I only do the initialization in here. You see the error is resolved, and again I have to create the variable I in here. I also to remove this from here and only see that. Let's see what happens if this time we run those tasks into the separate threads on Android. As soon as I click the start thread 1 button, so it's going to inside the switch and it checks which button is clicked. If the start button 1 is clicked, so it comes in here, a new thread will be created for our second button, and inside the run method you will do all of your related tasks, which takes more than 60 seconds. Okay, in here you write your tasks inside the run method. It is the background thread. So a new thread will be created, and inside the run method it checks if the variable I initialize the variable to 0, and if the condition is true, so it will update the UI from the background thread. when you want to update the UI from the background thread, also call the run on UI thread and pass the runnable object inside this. Inside the run method, you will update the UI. Okay, as soon as I click, a new thread will be created and the color of the values will be green. Okay, you'll see, amazing, isn't it? So this is how you will pass the separate task to the background thread and update the UI from the background by using run on UI thread. So another way you can also update the UI from the background by using handlers. Okay, as soon as they reach to 300, it will stop. There you go. So I'm gonna close this one. So I'm gonna update the UI from the background thread by using the handlers. Okay, this time you're updating the UI by using the handlers. So I'm gonna comment these out, or I can also delete this. I only need to take these two text views. You must create a variable as the name of private handler and name it handler also. Okay, and also initialize the handler inside the main thread. Okay, wherever you initialize the handler, that handler will bind itself to that thread. Since the on thread will be run on the UI thread or main thread, so we have to initialize the handler in here. That's it. So from the background thread, I will update the UI by using the handler. So how can I do that? I say handler dot and call the post method and pass the runnable object in here and put the semicolon at the end and put these two text views inside the run method. And again, the same thing for our second button. Use the handler dot post new runnable. Okay, and put the semicolon in here and put the text views inside the handler. Okay, let's run and see what happens if we update the UI from the background thread by using the handlers. If you want to update the UI from the background thread, I also recommend you guys to use the handler to do so. You see, the same thing it does when you use the handler, like the run on UI method. So that's it. So another way to update the UI from the background thread, you can also use the handler by passing the message to them. Let's see how we can do that. So I'm gonna remove these things from here and also from our button 2. Now I'm gonna use the message class to pass the values to the handler, and the handler will handle those messages. If you do not know what is message that I'm using in here, make sure that you watch our previous video. I've given you a rough overview of message there. So in here I use the message and I name this message because constructor of the message class is public, but one of the best way to use one of the objects from the recycled pool of threads or pool of queue is by using message.obtain. Okay, it's gonna return you the unusable object of message back to you because it is really good for managing your memory. And then if you want to pass values to the handler to update your UI, so I use the message object and I use the arg1 and arg2, which is of type integers. You can also use the object type. You can pass any value there, but I'm gonna pass integers, so I'm gonna use arg1 and I pass the value of I to it. So as you know that we initialize the handler on the main thread, so we call the handler in here and I call the send message, and in here I pass the message object in here, and that's it. If you initialize the message outside this run for loop, it will give you error. Okay, so make sure that you initialize in here. For handling the background thread from the UI, make sure that the handler also implements the handle message inside this. Okay, and by using that, I say text1 dot set text, so it passing integer, so I cast this to string dot value and I pass the msg dot arg1 because we have passed the our full loop values to arg1. I can also change the text color to color dot green. Okay, and again for our second thread, we can also use that message equals to message dot obtain, and I say message dot arg1 equals to I, and I use the handler to send these messages. So now I'm passing from two different threads two different values to the handler, but the handler only updates one text view. So how can I identify which button is clicked and to update its UI? So we will use the object in here now. So I say message.obg1 and I say it is thread 1. Okay, and inside the message in here I say message.obg and I say it is thread 2. And inside the handler we will say that if, or you can also use switch, if msg.obg.cast is to a string, if it was equals to 1, so it is text view 1, you need to update the text view, else text 2 is collect dot set text color dot green and text 2 dot set text, and it is in the form of an integer and I cast this to a string msg1 dot arc1, and that's it. So let's run and see what happens. And this time we update the UI from the background thread by using the message class. When I click the thread 1, it's doing its work. When I click the thread 2, it's also doing its work. So in this video you have learned how you can deal with threads, run on UI threads, handlers and message. And you know that if you block the main thread for more than 6 seconds, so an ANR dialog will appear and it tells you that application not responding because you're blocking the whole UI. In the next video, I'm gonna teach you guys how you can download an image from the internet by using a background thread. And I've told you earlier that on the previous video, if you do not perform long running operations on main thread like downloading something, so in here we will download an image from the internet and it takes a long time. So we will use a background thread to download that image for us from internet. I hope you guys have understood something out of this video, and if you guys do like what you watched, make sure that you subscribe us and let us know your thoughts in the comment boxes below this video if you are new to this channel. And if you have any suggestions, just let me know and I will answer them ASAP. So till next video, have fun learning, where we will be talking about threads and downloading an image from the internet by using the background thread. So till next video, have fun learning. Peace out. Don't forget that learning is a journey. Let's learn it together.